Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking time from your busy schedules and joining us today. So now we'll start with the next panel discussion: value chain of GenAI applications, security, privacy, and governance interventions. So first, I would like to call upon the moderator for today's session, Ms. Shobha Jagatpal, onto the stage now, and we have Mr. Lalit Mohan from Securite, part of the panel. We have Anil Namaji from Control S. And we have Mr. Steve D'Souza from ICICI Lombard. And Mr. Atul Govil, onto the stage, please. Thank you. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, and welcome everyone. I believe the chairs are also mine because the floor is mine and the chairs are on top of the floor. So I hope all of you had good lunch. Yes. Great. So we will talk about the value chain of Gen AI and specifically try to relate it to how we can look at the Gen AI value chain when we want to apply it to application security, privacy, and governance aspects. And I have an eminent panel over here. I'm Shobha Jagatpal. I'll be moderating this session. We will quickly start with a small introduction from each of the panel members. I'll just give them 1 minute to introduce themselves, and then we will get going. Lalit, over to you.
You are introducing yourself or?
I'll ask one of you to introduce me at the end. Okay, Lalit, over to you.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dr. Lalit Mohan. I'm running the product for Securite, the enterprise arm of Quick Heal. So prior to that, I worked for Infosys running the product engineering. I was heading the R&D for Wells Fargo and a banking entity called IDRBT. So yeah, here I'm to talk about Gen AI. Less than 1 minute.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Hi, I am Anil Nama. I am the CIO for Control S in Cloud4C. My passion has been both from IT and security. It's a mixture. We call it as RegTech solutions. So there was a development that we have done over the period of last 13, 14 years to ensure the data is accessible as well as secure from an end customer.
Thank you. Steve.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Steve D'Souza. I manage the enterprise risk function for ICICI Lombard. Been part of the BFSI sector for over 15 years, and prior to ICICI Lombard, I was working with HDFC Life.
Hi, good afternoon. No, you spoke about that good lunch, so the onus is on us to keep everybody awake. Okay. So that's on a lighter note. So my name is Atul Govil. I work for a company called India Glycols. So we are primarily into chemicals, petrochemical products, and incidentally we also make liquor. And besides that, we have a pharma division. So we're almost $1 billion turnover company today as we speak. And I take care of technology and tech-led business transformation initiatives within the company. And we'll be happy to share what we are doing around this tech space, particularly AI, Gen AI space, in context of cybersecurity.
Fantastic. I told that I will ask one of them to introduce me, but I'll do it myself. Don't want to put them into a spot. Okay, waiting, so I'll hand over to you. So I'm Shobha Jagatpal. Very brief introduction. That's my name and that's my identity, so we'll just leave it over there. We will start with a quick rapid fire so that you will try to relate what they introduce themselves as with this rapid fire question as well. So Lalit, cloud or on-prem?
Hybrid.
Oh. Texting, talking?
Testing, talking.
Texting, text, SMS, short, message, service.
Or talking, both.
Both? Oh, rapid fire didn't work for you. Mohan, AI or deep AI? Anil, yeah. Anil, you can go.
Presently it is AI, deep AI still in the learning form.
Okay. Dawn, dusk.
Dusk.
Okay, super. Steve, tech modernization or tech transformation?
Tech modernization.
Wow, no transformation from you. Okay. Wheels without wheels?
Wheels.
Oh, superb. Atul, fuel, plants.
Could you
Fuel, or plants? What is your choice? Fuel.
Fuel. That's the fuel which goes into plants.
Yes, fuel that goes to us as well, to the vehicles. Everything.
Okay, plants any day.
Any day plants, okay.
Yeah.
Paper, plastic?
Paper, I would say.
Super. Okay, so I think these are the questions that you could relate to what they work on. So I got to know that Lalit is hybrid, so I'll keep that in mind. We will
That
get...
sounds little awkward.
No, just in terms
Sure.
of your work preference. Okay, so going back to the Gen AI, Lalit, I will start with you. So can you just give an example on how Gen AI can be used in areas of application security?
Sure. So, quick introduction in terms of where we are also doing in terms of Gen AI. So, we run the product in terms of endpoint security, endpoint at the consumer level, endpoint at the corporate user level. So, and then with the way that users are becoming present on laptops, mobile devices, OTs, etc., I think security becomes eminent everywhere. And then the way the network is from where the different locations. So, for us, Gen AI is relevant because one, the challenges in terms of how we want to retain skill set. What is that we can do in terms of so many screens where you're getting alerts, so many false positives? What is that really that you need to bring attention? So for us, Gen AI, in terms of putting them together, simplifying the user experience, trying to get my MTTD down, MTTR better, is where the Gen AI plays a role.
Oh, fantastic. I was thinking of you would share some use cases for application security.
Application
perspective in the
security, so we are not into application security business.
Okay.
So, but I can talk about application security.
Yeah,
That's not
one
a-
example on how it can be used in application security.
Oh, sure. I think while we are not into application security, but we also do a lot of software code that we build in terms of building security products. So we use Gen AI in terms of what is that we want to do in terms of making sure that exceptions that get otherwise need to be handled otherwise. What is that we need to do in terms of putting the story together in terms of, yeah, these are all the various application concerns that come in terms of security products that we are building together. How do you summarize in terms of the top exceptions that we want to handle? That's where we look at Gen AI.
Oh, fantastic. I think this is another example of hybrid. He gave us example on how Gen AI can be used for application security and in application security.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lalit.
Thank you.
So Anil, over to you. Can you give one example on how we can use Gen AI in the area of privacy?
Yeah, so I mean, privacy or everybody knows about application vulnerabilities, but data lifecycle, data security, we have till date been restricted to the DLP and the rules of the DLP. I feel I can take an example. We have done a few experiments. Let me take an example of an hospital. So hospitals have to share data, let's say, to some research center for diseases. Now, traditionally, what used to happen is we used to create cuboids, then we used to chart the data as per location, countrywide, and then we used to mask the data and send it across. Now, let us say this simple example belongs to a case where you want to develop a ML, which only treats in casualty 3 things in ambulance. Should you do first aid? Should you do some sutures and leave? Or should you take him to an emergency? Now that requires an image, that requires a lot more data around the subject, which is his BP, etc., which can't be simply loaded inside a database. So in comes your big data and then loads of files. So you have problems on how to mask this data. So my first use case would be on to anonymize this data. Maybe from X-rays, if we are taking patient names, dates, remove that. Maybe from the data that we are having, if it is already unknown by subject, leave it. If it is known by subject, introduce some noise, some anonymization. So the way we are doing it is we train on learning for a particular organization within its data mart a Gen AI. Then we anonymize the data and we once again do a statistical Fourier and other series of analysis so that it gives the same research output. It doesn't change the research output. Now I can share the data. So that's one example on how do you do it for diseases. The second example that I was talking to where you are going visual, that is even more problematic in privacy because you can't remove everything. For example, in armed forces, you use the teeth X-ray as a identity. So at some level, those becomes identity. So how do you do it? There we have been talking about a generative area network. We've been talking to few providers. Can we do small MLs within the hospitals? When you do that, maybe you learn delta in a learning mode. You put it to the second guy because you require a very diverse set of data. If you don't have a diverse set of data, that ML won't be strong in terms of detection. To overcome that, our idea of that use case is do small MLs, take that learning out in a generative system and exchange the ML data within the org. So it's not using a research center to push all your data. At the local site itself, generate the ML and then mature the ML and redeploy it across.
Fantastic. I think one takeaway, at least for me, is I wish everyone, when they look at the data, they think about the privacy aspects in the data and take some of the precautions that you shared about, not use the data as is, production data coming to research and learning purposes. I think those are some of the things I think everyone should be cautious about, is what I take from that. Steve. Risk and governance plays a very key role, and without that being thoughtful and mindful, I think none of the things would move forward. Any example you can share on how Gen AI can be used from governance perspective?
Yeah, obviously governance is the most important for organization from a long-term view, right? What gets measured and monitored is in place. So I think from a Gen AI perspective, in governance, there are multiple use cases, whether in risk management, in compliance management, audit assurance, or for that performance management as well. If I have to call out a few of them, I think to the top, I would call compliance. I think in the area of compliance, there's a lot of scope. Let's take an example of a GCC or a multinational company operating across geographies in multiple industries, right? The amount of compliance that they need to manage, depending on the industry and geography that they are, whether it is GDPR, HIPAA, PCI DSS, whatever. It's not, while it's been happening over the years, but does it give the management the comfort? No, because it's running in silos, right? That's an outside view. Similarly, an organization today would be certified on ISO 27001 for information security, on 31001 risk management, on something on quality, 9001 on quality management, similarly on health and safety, and so on. All of these frameworks work in silos. If you really require an integrated management system, I think that's where AI, as we move ahead, will bring all of this together, right? Let's take an example from a risk management. Transaction monitoring, fraud management has been happening. While this has been happening, there have been fraud management systems, but frauds are still happening. You look at the RBI reports, the count of frauds is there's an uptrend. Gen AI will play a very important role, because you're not talking about only historical data or pattern of what you have built in your credit profile, but now you're the sources that you get externally from regulators, from other industries. When you put it in, bringing all of this together, you need Gen AI models. And even if you take it ESG as a space, if you want to measure your energy wastage, your carbon emissions, water wastage, all of that, you need mechanisms and systems. And large organizations like Walmart and the others are using AI today to drive ESG and sustainability capabilities.
Thank you. So Atul,
Yeah.
we heard an example on AppSec, privacy and governance and risk aspects. So how do you think we can use a combination of all of them and help grow business?
So the one thing which I could hear is one that even till date, most of us are actually, we sometimes use AI and ML, traditional AI ML, and we believe we are using Gen AI because that's the new buzzword. And there's a huge difference between the two. And just to call it out, if you look at any of these IT solutions or deployments or applications, they've all been deterministic till so far. It's only for Gen AI which is non-deterministic. Every time you run a query, you may get a very different result, and that's a very tricky part of the whole solution. And if you look at from the Gartner's quadrant standpoint also, if you look at it, we are actually at the peak of inflated expectations in the phase of peak of inflated expectations from this application. Every enterprise individual seeks and speaks about it as if they know it all. But the fact of the matter is, it's an evolving technology and it's yet to mature. Every month, every week, we find one or the other releases coming out. Where I'm coming from is, like, from an enterprise standpoint, there are three key things, which is important. One, for any tech, Gen AI included, to be used in production environments, mainstream production environment, it has to be safe, secure, and reliable. And in all these three streams or factors, Gen AI is yet to prove its worth. It's still evolving. If you talk about the guardrails, from a policy standpoint, you don't have nations who've got crafted strategies and policies around Gen AI as we speak. They are in the making, but it's still a long way ahead. So from that standpoint, there are very few enterprises who would actually have put in all those guardrails. I know of few tools which we did some POCs also some time back, wherein they can keep a tab. If you were to deploy that tool, they can keep a tab that know which individual in which department has run what query on Gen AI. Is that individual trying to upload any sensitive data? Of course, not to harm the company, but maybe to drive productivity for himself or for the department. But that could have ramifications. So basically stopping that interaction or the transaction to happen at that point of time rather than finding it out later. So all of those tools are still in the making, and we need to watch out for these tools, technologies. And as I said, we will also have to find a use case for Gen AI, a real use case. If you're talking about structured data, it could be around BP measurement, as Anil spoke about, or anything. Most of it is structured data. I don't still believe, and given my experience, that we would need a Gen AI to work on structured data. It's largely built for unstructured data. So you have to also figure out what use cases are you deploying Gen AI for, because they come at a cost. Today, you may find it being available for $20 per month from, say, a ChatGPT or something. But these are all those traditional old ways of getting the team or the users, you have to first lure them at lower cost, and then at some point of time increase the cost when you've got enough base. So need to be cautious from that. And from a cybersecurity standpoint, if I talk about, there are three particular use cases which we've kind of worked on and we are working on. One is how do we protect applications which use Gen AI from any kind of hacking or any malware or some issues. So that is one aspect which is important. Second is, how do we protect the Gen AI application itself, whatever we have deployed, from, say, model poisoning, or you have some in some cases you got prompt injection. Like we used to have SQL injection. Now in this parlance we call it prompt injection, wherein prompts are injected. Say, if I give you an example, that suppose if you were to ask a question, then give all wrong answers. So it's like you've poisoned the model itself, and whatever responses you will get will all be wrong. So these are all themes which are important, and we need to be clear first, where do we apply Gen AI, and then while we do so, how do we make sure that these issues which we're talking about are addressed right from the very beginning.
Okay, so all I hear is be cautious. So first
Yeah,
of
be
all,
cautious, yeah.
know what exactly is the business case, define it well, and then make sure you have the needed controls. And there's a challenge there because it's an emerging tech. We do not have the right tools to get the right guardrails. So be cautious of that, and then proceed is your message. Okay. Cool. So now we got some glimpse on various ways we can use Gen AI, and also some caution on not having a proven, I would say, solution. So how we got to be cautious on it. Lalit, no, I'll go to Steve because he has mic. What do you think is the current global center capability, like India, in terms of skills and capabilities individuals have to embrace this, I would say, technology?
I think Indians are known for the technical know-how that we have, right? Wherever, even if you're talking about global organizations today, the backbone is those design organizations. For them, the product development teams are sitting out of India, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, whatever it is. So from a capability per se, I think Indians or the young folk have have the knowledge and the know-how. I think we are early adopters anyway, right? Whether it's cloud or whatever. But over a period of time, I think defining a strategy is what is more important. I think if you're talking about leveraging Gen AI, then I think really defining what is the vision and the objective of what you're trying to achieve which should start from there. Are you doing it for customer support or satisfaction experience? Are you doing it for operational efficiency? Are you doing it from security? I think these are the first fundamental needs to be put in place. Training, it's not about only on the technical stuff, right? You need the training for your data scientists, your DevOps engineers, for your AI engineers on using AI, machine learning models, NLP and all of that. But similarly, the support functions and the business functions need to understand the fundamentals on AI and how they're going to have a business impact. I think that's what is required, because it's a buzzword today. Everybody wants to use it. Without understanding the implications of it is what will hit you, right? Because you already have the EU Act out, which talks about the 300 million penalty or 6% of your annual revenue and so on. And we've already seen implications of AI in the last 2 years. There are OEMs who have leaked data using public LLM models. There is image biasness which were there. There are use cases where it has been used by police force, but the wrong people got arrested. There are use cases of it being used for HR recruitment. Again, there's a bias towards what the feed data was for. So I think fundamentally understanding what you are trying to do and putting guardrails that he mentioned and having those objectives defined is what is required. The talent and the know-how would come. People would get trained. It's a new technology. It's evolving. And we have already seen ChatGPT started with X version and it's at Y version in the pace that it is. And the adoption of it, I think, as we all know, it has been the fastest ever. So I don't think adoption and knowledge is an issue. It's how do you define and what do you want to do with Gen AI is what is more important.
Thank you. No, absolutely, and that was what I was going to ask you, because from where you come, I think you get to deal with innovators. And
I think I see a
minds.
completely different view than. Okay. Absolutely, I can relate to. He's trying to use the product or trying to use the capable people, right? From a product angle, if I see it, I'll take some examples that I saw on the floor here. I don't know how many of you visited. I'm not promoting any startup here, but I saw a company called AI Shield. They are talking about guardrails in terms of what is happening in Gen AI, right? And they talk about 50 patents that they have. So I think from a India capability perspective, especially from the product organizations, there's so much that's happening from building capabilities. Just to touch upon, so I come from academic background. If you look at the India initiative from Bharat GPT, the initiative that is happening in terms of we building GPTs for Indian languages so that the last mile connectivity happens. I think excellent effort, whether it is India AI stack or the Bharat GPT, are excellent initiatives towards building overall as a capability of what we can do from GPT or Gen AI perspective. I think a lot of startups that have GPT. That's second. I think even if you look at deep fake detections, which is one of the biggest concerns in terms of what we are seeing as from a digital arrest perspective in some form, or the deep fakes, audio, video, all that is happening. The research is happening currently in a lot of organizations. We do quite a bit of research on deep fake. If you look at Gen AI as general in terms of research, development, I'm seeing in every product there is an angle in terms of how deep a deep fake. The other angle is the GCCs that I've seen in some form, the global capability centers like herself coming from that setup. I know some organizations rely on India in terms of building those capabilities, working with the startups in India to build for their setups in the US. That's happening only because there is a capability here. lastly, I talked about product companies, research, GCCs, and the services companies. That's which is our bread and butter. I see some friends here from Infosys. I'm not talking about Infosys, but I know a lot of services companies, whether it is TCS, Infosys, Wipro, most of them I'm guessing, they are doing not just in terms of building capability from training perspective on various certifications, but actually creating an IP. So I think the potential has changed. The world view of India is very different now.
Oh, fantastic. So I think both of them rated as number 5 top in terms of the skills and capabilities we have in our country. So I hope we will continue to embark that journey and flag that we can learn anything as rapid as the technology emerges, and then we can deliver onto it. Great. And I also heard that there's no product available in the world at this point of time which would not use an AI or Gen AI. Certainly he touched upon it as well. So thanks for sharing that. So Anil, one question. We spoke about some of the processes, we got to know about the capability and skill set. Now coming to technology, can you speak about what kind of challenges that we would face in adopting Gen AI? Maybe one of the use cases you can take in AppSec or privacy and then code that.
Abstractly, see, ransomware has shown us that we are still lacking on identity access management and data protection. At the same time, we want to aggregate data and turn it into a calculus series which can give protection. So the basics in and around, authorization, take armed forces, need to know basis, who should know what data. That needs to be sanitized. That's one big showstopper for Gen AI, because people themselves don't believe that they are protected in the current environment. Therefore, when they feel that this is abstracted 2 to the power 10, the risk becomes 2 to the power 10. The second place all this fight is happening around is bias. People say that machine learning will learn biases. Because humans have biases. We still don't have a system, whether you take it a HR system or IT system, which actually calls out biases even in our simple email messaging. There is no such system today in place to say that, gentlemen, you are using a bias. So there is no education per se in the process itself. Whether human is using, machine using, that comes second. So these are the 2 key showstoppers there. The third is in and around how do you integrate this whole setup into an existing application. Because your ML is not going to run in isolated manner. For example, let's talk, I want to use ML just in the ambulances to find out whether the wound has to be treated in hospital or local treatment. It has to have hooks into the HIMS, whatever systems are there. Now, because this GPU series and GPU as a service is coming out on its own, its integration on right hand side and the scalability thereafter are the questions. And that in it itself is also the enablers. I'm pretty excited. I went to a recent launch, at least Dell and Lenovo, 2 guys have announced that Copilot or ChatGPT based hardware is there at the end computers. So I can think of a view that, the security for LLM research of BART or whatever it is as it becomes Llama mature, a Copilot could be replaced by them. So at least I am sure that somebody is trying either to access my system or trying to take data from my system or install something. This to an end user is not there. When we drive a car, it tells you everything. Battery not charging, it's giving an indicator. When we sit on an IT system, those things don't come. That is some place I think it should start.
Okay. So I take it as 2 key takeaways for myself, and one is with the entitlements management. So that's very, very important. And then how do we bring it to the mainstream in terms of integrating and offering a holistic service from front to back? So those are 2 my big takeaways. Atul, to you, continuing on that, he spoke about 2 such elements. Anything that you want to add in addition in terms of challenges or controls that we need to keep in mind?
No, I'll start with the people aspect first, because like in our enterprise, we keep mapping individuals. So what we've seen is kind of 4 personas of users of Gen AI, and each pose their relative risks or controls. So one is the maximalist kind of a thing in a persona who would like to do everything on Gen AI. Anything under the sun, they would like to try and do so using Gen AI. And then there would be a few others like who would be termed as underground. So they are using Gen AI, but they pretend as if they are not using it because they feel guilt that if they were to tell that no, we are using Gen AI and creating this output using Gen AI, then it may bring their credence down because, and then there are rebels who would say no, we don't care, this technology will not do anything, it's all a bogey thing. It'll fade off like many other technologies have, like the blockchains of the world, for good or bad reasons. Of course, it has made millions, but it's not come to the enterprise applications to that degree which we expected. And then finally, you have those who are those, the ones who are the big fans of technology. They are good fans, but they will not use it, but they will basically prompt their team members that, no, why don't you use this? So, and each one poses their relative challenges to us. That is one. Second is, you have this whole OWASP 10 principles, you would have heard of, that these are those 10, it could be model poisoning, biases, supply chain, vector attacks, whatever, and prompt injection I spoke about, and many, they've listed those 10 challenges which we need to be very wary of whilst we deploy these technologies. Having said that, I also want to highlight, particularly in the parlance of Gen AI, it's like, you get Ferrari in your home or in your office, and the drivers are not ready to, basically, they don't understand the controls of the Ferrari. So that could be the best of the breed, but then you have to first train the team, because it's, as I said, it's non-deterministic. It has, you don't even know where your data is actually going. So if you have controls wherein, if data, you are uploading some data or getting some data from an IP standpoint also, copyright standpoint also, how well you are protected, because otherwise you could have intended or unintended consequences which can put the organization at risk, leave aside the individual. So challenges in plenty, but one thing also I want to tell clearly is, there will be only 2 kind of organizations which will sustain in the next couple of years. At least that's what I clearly see. One, those who are leveraging technology like Gen AI and progressing, and others who would have shut shop already. And in this parlance, I also want to call out that hope cannot be a strategy. That hope everything will go right, all right. That will never happen. So hope cannot be a strategy. You need to start working on it. You need to start understanding the nuances, not just as a user. And I also want to call out, there's a very, very big difference between just being a user of Gen AI and a service provider of Gen AI. So incidentally, the who's who of the world is being currently driven by the Silicon Valley. Okay, you've got the Microsofts of the world, the Googles of the world, the AWS of the world, who are driving these technologies, and we are made to pay for that. So I don't know, when we say that India is ready to deploy Gen AI, whether it is good or bad for it, because ultimately it might also happen that instead of skill parity, which we want to create with Gen AI, because a lesser skilled person can act or can perform par with a higher skilled person. The skill parity, which is the objective. We might find that companies in India may believe that no, we should end up optimizing manpower. So rather than skill optimizer, it becomes a manpower optimizer tool. So that's something which we'll need to be very cautious about.
Great. I think 2 things that I would take away. I know there were a lot of points that you shared. One, I think with the existing threat itself, we are struggling on how to put in the right controls. There's so many uncertainties which Gen AI seems to be a hard one for us to deal with. That's what I take from Anil, and Atul touched upon various personas we need to keep in mind when we think of challenges, and bigger challenge of some specific vendors who would be the players in the area, and we are forced to just use the services that would come from them. Maybe indirectly, I think that he's calling out for more innovation to come from this country. So that's how we can take it as an assertive message from you, Atul. So with that, I'll open it up for the audience. We have eminent panel who have shared their thoughts on GenAI. Any questions for the panel? There's one, yeah.
So first of all, I would like to appreciate, Atul, your thoughts when you say only two kind of enterprises will sustain. One which is going to use GenAI and the others will vanish. But I have a question. Probably OpenAI launched in 2023 November or sometime. 22 now. 2023. So, 22, right? So it's been almost 2 years, right? And still enterprises are talking about doing a lot of POCs, trying to learn, making LLM and now SLM, etc., etc. I just want to hear from all of you a real use case which has been actually incorporated in any enterprise. I can understand the fact that if you have data, huge data, you can bring value out of it, and that's what is GenAI in a layman term. I just want to hear whether it is from cybersecurity perspective or from enterprise, business perspective.
No, I think I'll just take part of that question. One is from an enterprise standpoint, as I said, you would have a wide spectrum of users. So I believe you would also, each one of us would fall in that 4 blocks. Okay. One thing which is absolutely clear is usage of GenAI tools for summarization, content creation. It could be content around images, text, sometimes videos also, multimodal as we call it.
Or probably few reels also as well.
All of that is reels. I will not talk about because reels may not apply to organizations, but within organization, that's happening for sure. That's happening for sure. There's beyond doubt it's happening. Now there would be people like who would be doing it as an underground operator, but it's happening. Coming to the aspect around, it's been 2 years, nothing much has happened. We have to also appreciate internet, emailing, mobility also took its own sweet time to mature to the level it is today. Internet is it started in the 90s era. Emailing also started around the same time. ERPs also started around the same time. And they have taken their own sweet time to come to this stage and juncture and prove their worth. If you, I closely follow the GenAI evolutions, what's happening. What I can clearly see is in next 1 year or so, we might as well reach a stage of, I will not call it AGI, but at least these AI tools would have intelligence or IQ levels which would surpass even the levels of Elon Musk or the likes, which means that it will become extremely potent. Now, once these potent technologies are put in play, are available, then it's for consumers like us, organizations like us, and implementation partners like who would be sitting inside the room to help us create creative solutions around whatever business problems we are currently having. And it's happening as we speak. So it will take its time. It's not that we have to say that you do it today or you are out of the race. So it's happening, and we rather understand that that's something which is there. So we can't challenge it. So we have to be in that flow.
If I have to add to it, my view of where it is being used is on the customer servicing side. I think all the chatbots that you see on major global players, there is some form of AI behind. What level of proficiency is a different piece. Second, today the kind of hyper personalization that you are seeing, the way you are being targeted, it's really not possible without use of AI at least to a certain extent. So on the customer service side, on chatbots or on personalization side, I think there is a reasonable usage, and that will only evolve as we move ahead.
I just wanted to add, enterprises could be organizations like us. Enterprises could also be those malware guys, right? I think
we know the uses.
Their usage, and because of their usage, the number of phishing attacks increased by 1,000 odd %. right? So in that enterprise, it is working very well, right? But I mean, you would have seen, right? Tell me which company did not talk about a co-pilot or a co-assistant or agent here. So I'm sure there is a challenge in terms of value proposition, and especially we as product companies, every day, every penny that we spend, we see whether that money is going to come back and what is that we can do as investment or innovation, because we want to be relevant. We also want to generate revenue. And that's a serious conversation, and every organization is making a stride towards it.
Thank you. I think there's one more question, but maybe we can take it offline. The panel members will be available for some more time for you to interact. With that, I think we will call it a close. Thank you so much for your patience. It was eye-opening for me and great learnings as well. Thank you.